Hi everybody, welcome and glad you're here at the Institute, and all of you who are with organizational leadership and executive coaching, we're going to have a great night together, and thanks for making the time. We want to make sure it's got value for you in all sorts of ways. And speaking about value, I want to get right into our material because this talk is, and I hope you have your handout out, this talk is really important for the part of organizational leadership and any coaching you do, any leading you do, whatever, that tends to really be overlooked, especially unfortunately in our circles of the Christian faith, is because whether it's a Christian organization or a church or a 501c3 or whatever, it's always the vision and it always trumps is greater than the execution. Just having been around this world a lot, and by the way, that's not a good thing. That is a bad thing. It's not a positive. Is that I think by nature, people in our faith are hopeful people. We want to see lives changed. We believe that if we do what God says to, that life will work better, and those are all good things, and that we have a big mission plan and plan in our minds, and we hope it ties in with His mission. So we're sort of we're transcendent people anyway by definition, so we get really excited about vision. But then it's not really sexy to talk about execution. I mean, look at the word. Execution. That means going to get your head chopped off somewhere. It's kind of a negative word, right? Oh, I'm so excited about execution. I don't care about vision. Execution. I tell you what, do not make this the ugly stepbrother or stepsister. It's very important. We're going to talk about how to do it well. Great Bible passage here that I love about this has to do with the importance of it. Ecclesiastes 7:8. And Solomon says, "The end of a matter is better than its beginning." Now that is profound for those of us in leadership and coaching, is because no matter how great the start, vision-wise, if it doesn't end up with what I would call some kind of increase in all sorts of ways, increase in profit, increase in market share, increase in revenues, increase in KPIs, increase in people, personnel, hiring. If there's no increase at the end, which is the end of the matter, like it's often said in politics, hope is not a strategy. So we want to go beyond hope and vision. You've got to have those. The Bible says people die without it. People perish without a vision. But you'd better respect that not exciting part over here and that not exciting person over here who doesn't get the love he or she needs. When you go see Wizard of Oz and there's somebody behind the curtain, they say ignore the man behind the curtain. Don't ignore the man or woman behind the curtain here. You love them, respect them, listen to them, give them a party, pop the cork, because they bring the end of the matter to fruition. I've just seen so many great organizations, and then what happens? You just don't hear anything after a while. That's why when James Collins, who wrote the great book Good to Great, then wrote a book after that called Why the Mighty Fail, where he studied great organizations for several years and the ones that had their demise. And there was 5 reasons, but his big reason was hubris, which is pride. But there are other reasons like not having good execution. So big deal. I want you to be thinking about it. I want to put a structure together I think that works, but I want you to be a bit worried about it in a good way. So what's the definition of execution? It's in your handout. It is the implementation of a course of action. So in any good organization, there's the vision part, and then there's the action part, which tends to be goals and strategy. And then there's implement. And, this has to do with the heart, getting people excited about the changes and how much it ties in with making people's lives better. And that this is the plan, and this is the behavior. And so I like that definition. I like simple definitions that apply in a lot of places. And what it really means is there's got to be the right behaviors. I've seen organizations that really didn't look like they were that viable, like couldn't imagine they're really exploding. Maybe it's a company that didn't have the smartest people, or maybe their product wasn't the best product or service product, but they had great execution people and people who were running operations. and they made things really successful. I've also seen the greatest idea in the world, the greatest app, or the greatest medical supplies or whatever. And where are they now? So it'll save the day. All right, let me just go on the key aspects of what execution is about. First is your goals, your key performance indicators, and you've got to have goals. In other words, for you to behave a certain way, there's got to be something leading you a certain way. And this is what boards are about. This is what ownership meetings are about. This is what key meetings are about, sales meetings, executive meetings, C-suite meetings. Whoever is doing this, somebody's got to have a goal. And I'm a big believer in annual goals, 1, 3, 5, sometimes 10, but who knows, there's so many variables at the 10 part. Maybe just kind of a swag goal, sheer wild-eyed guess, but you got to have goals, and then the goals come down to smaller pieces. We're going to also, here in the program, we're teaching about strategy as well. I don't want to go into that and be redundant, but you got to have those. Now, classically speaking, in organizational work, there's two kinds of indicators. One's called lagging and one's called leading. And I want to tell you the difference, because you got to know the difference so you can have things push forward. A lagging indicator is output oriented, is easy to measure, and it's hard to improve. Meaning, what I mean by output, it's at the beginning. In other words, what do I want this to be like at the beginning? Before we know what we know, before we know how much money we've got, or how our CRM's going, or how our sales force is going, or what our pipeline's like, what do it be? For example, it might be, we want 20% annual growth. Well, by any kind of organization, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's a blue sky. But that would be a lagging indicator, because what you see is that at the very beginning, that's the one you want to have in your mind. At the beginning. Oh, my beginning's over here. Wait a minute, you're watching me over this way. It's the beginning. And so as you move on, maybe you got a 1-year plan, there's that indicator, you started there, so it's lagging behind you, but you keep remember, 20%, 20%, 20%. However, it's really hard to improve it. Why? Because you don't know if the end is going to look like that or not. You can't do a lot about that. It's just good to have it for accountability purposes. Then there's a leading indicator. That is more input. Lead is input oriented. You can do something about a leading indicator. For example, we're going to cut costs by 5%. We can do that. We can do that today. It'll take us a couple of months, but we can do that right now. Or we're going to sell new products, adding 5%. We know where they are. We can go get them. We can do a good price on them. Right? So I'm either cutting cost 5, which goes down, new products goes up. So that's something I can do something about. It is hard to measure, though, because even though I can improve it, I can do things about it, but you don't know how it's going to affect this. See, if this all goes right, if the leads all go right, the lag works out. Gosh, we had this plan. We cut costs, we put new products in there, and we, had a new sales team, and guess what happened? We got the 20% or 15 or 12% annual growth. I can do a lot about this, but this isn't the vision. This is the vision. Okay? So, again, remember that the lagging one is the one that you start at the beginning, but you can't control it. It gets controlled by this. Very important. You got to have both. All right. The next element in your handout is the champion. What I mean by the champion is you've got to have somebody who is a stakeholder. Now, not be somebody who's got equity or a stock or a percentage of ownership, but you know what? They've got to have a lot of care. They've got to really worry about this, worry in a healthy sense. And you say to that person, you're the person that's going to glue this together, because maybe it's the sales manager, or maybe it's the executive pastor, because they do a lot of work, or maybe it's somebody on your team that cares about this sort of thing, that really cares about execution and sees it as very important. But this is a person that takes it home with them and thinks about it at night and thinks about it over a weekend. They try to have a balanced life. We all want that. But just their nature is they worry about it. That's the person that you're going to keep pushing the sled dogs to get things done. They've got to have a good personality, but they've got to not worry about the impact of bugging people. They're just sort of like the little flea that keeps coming and jumping on things, and they're always asking about it. I remember I had a company who had a stakeholder that we didn't know he was a stakeholder at the time, but he cared so much about the goals we were setting that he would call me all the time. I finally had to say, go get a life. But he would call me, he'd call other people, and you could tell this wasn't just a clock-watching job for him. This was something that he had a burning desire. Found that, well, it was because his life had been changed by the material, and he believed that it was something I was doing in the material that I write and do videos and content and audios on. And he just said, boundaries turned me around, and learning about relationships turned me around, and this isn't just kind of like a check for me. And number one, that was that. Number two, he really did have good people skills. So he cared about moving forward. He was frustrated when it was moving forward, and he was always talking to the people about it. There's a great statement in business, guys, about your messenger or champion. What is noticed improves. What happens when the teacher walks out of the room while the kids in the third grade are in there? Well, they're screwing around and they're throwing water balloons and punching each other. But if somebody's noticing, it doesn't go perfect, but things are better when somebody is noticing, supervising, talking about it. That champion is the person that's noticing. God, we're kind of behind on this, or why didn't we get that report, or this sort of thing. And people respond because somebody noticed. The next part of this on your outline about execution is messaging. You've really got to have people on board, or what we would call aligned. When people are aligned, their hearts are in their place, and their heads are in their place, and also they've got role clarity, and also they see the big picture. This isn't just another initiative to increase sales or whatever. We're going to help people's lives, and we're going to help people's families. And the shoes we create in Acme Shoes are going to help people to feel comfortable and be able to work without pain and this sort of thing. So somebody's got to be in charge of the messaging. And the thing about messaging is I believe in the multi-messaging or multi-modes, lots of modes of messaging. Now, what does that mean? It means emails that say, we're so excited about this, and sending those out regularly about some great aspects of the execution picture. Or the thermometers. I was working with one company, a really nice manufacturing company. They had the thermometer on how the sales were going, so the people who were working on the machines saw it go up and up and up all the time, and they were part of that. And the thermometer, like if you're raising funds, they were just raising revenues and saying, we're almost to our goals, and there was a prize at the end of that. And so visual things like that, email things, digital things like that, posters, attaboys, tchotchkes, these sorts of things matter to people. You think they don't, and the cheesy ones really don't, like, a note on somebody's desk that says, you can do it. Well, okay, we've said that too much. But it's got to be thoughtful, but different modes really helps the messaging. Why? Because people are sort of all ADD. We just live in an ADD world and community, and squirrel, right? That's how it is, No YouTube video you watch over 1:30 now, I think, something like that. And so people have got all kinds of distractions in their life, so you got to be the one that keeps reminding them, this is cool, this is important, this will help you, help us. Messaging over and over and over again. And here's something that, kind of doesn't get a lot of love, but you've got to have regular meetings. Now, it sounds like a duh, but what I found is that there are good regular meetings and there are awful regular meetings and there's no regular meetings. Good regular meetings, everybody shows up as a high priority, people's schedules are, cleared out, and, 90% to 100% of the people are there sitting down, and there's no digital cheating. You got to put, you can't be having your Apple Watch up or your oh, I got to take this. That'll kill a meeting. But also you've got to have people who really are. I think the best thing about a great regular meeting is that they are focused. Number one, they're focused, and then they are interactive. So whoever is chairing that meeting, guess who's going to chair the meeting, guys? Yes, your champion. Make sure it stays on point. Don't go off on rambling. Don't let somebody's narcissism about everything they want to talk about, or their obsessive compulsivism when they go into detail. Don't let, just say, okay, I got to move on, Sam, or we only got a minute here. But it's got to be interactive too. So don't let people, I hate those meetings where Sam does his report, Beth does his report, Bill does his report, Jill does her report. It's like talking heads. I feel like I'm, in junior high. We got to have people, somebody presents and you say, okay, what do you guys think about that? Let's tear it up. Let's understand it. So force interaction. Then people care. People care what they talk about. And then you see in your outline, response to results. Response to results. Whoops, I skipped one. In between messaging and meeting was monitoring. Monitoring is what I think that would be the character piece. The Institute is based on a way we look at growing character and how to be the healthiest person that God made, to have really good vulnerable bonding and attachment, to have really good separateness and individuation, to have really good integration so that you're not afraid of negative realities like failure and loss, and also to experience life like an adult, not one down or one up. Your monitoring has got to be, it's got to be a necessity. It can't be perceived as nagging, or it can't be perceived as somebody's judging someone. You have to do, I think, when you're setting this up, some work on helping people see this is not a judge, this is not a parent, and this is not busy work. Nothing works if it's not monitored. I can think of so many times in my life, in just companies I've been around or had, where nobody monitored, and then we ended up in the very wrong place because everybody was busy. So guess who's back? We're back to the champion again. You can see how key the champion is. To say, all right, where are we in a week? Where are we in 2 weeks? Okay, here's where we are. And when somebody does that, everything's fine. But my point is, on a cultural level, you make monitoring a good thing, not a thing to dread. People need to be able to feel like, the monitoring is good for me. It's like when you're monitoring how fat you are on your scale. You monitor that. Obviously, mine's not working. But you monitor how many push-ups you're doing, or how many presses you're doing. You monitor, how many Bible verses you read, this sort of thing. Monitoring's good, and to make it a normal thing. And then response to results. And what I mean by response to results is once you see some kind of results, the plan is working. Maybe we're at the 6-month mark, and the first half was good. There were some challenges, but we're halfway where we wanted to be. And you start to see the fruit. You make sure that there's celebration. As you know, there are so many neural passageways in your brain that are just designed for positive things and celebration. And so you've got to be more celebratory than you are problem-oriented. Now, problems are important. You've got to deal with problems. You've got to deal with negative realities. You've got to hit them right in the middle of the bullseye and fix them. But when you see a real winner, we worked hard and it's been a few months and look what happened. And, Sherry was the one that she was the rock star of this one or whatever. But you really celebrate that. You kind of, people sometimes act like it's cheesy, but they don't feel like that in their heart. They feel like, you really kind of stopped what you were doing and had this happen. I went to a retirement party the other day for a really close relative. And they spent about an hour with, videos about her work for 30 years and the cake and then a roast and all this. And she was just in tears and she was happy and crying at the same time. And she kept coming back. It's kind of hard to fire because she loved it so much. So don't think that stuff doesn't count. It really counts. So as you have a positive response to results, pay attention to it. But there's a second, that the emotional response to results. There's also a, switchback response to results. Hey, we're going the wrong way. Don't be afraid to change. There's always going to be some, this is kind of tied to the monitoring, there's always going to be some fine-tuning that you do. I hate it when people think, well, we've got this wired. Nobody's got anything wired. There's always a better person, a smarter idea out there. And so don't ever be afraid to change, as long as it's going in the right direction. So that's pretty much it. Those are the basics, and that's how it works. The best book that I know that I always refer to, and my clients, and I just kind of have my clients look at it and read it and structure it, and it's just kind of like they said it better than anybody else, is The 4 Disciplines of Execution by McChesney and Covey and Hewling. They really laid out what, if you put these 4 disciplines in, they're a structure, which fit very well with these, you'll get things done. So Give the love to execution. Maybe you're better with vision and you sort of suck at this and you're like, oh, I forget to do things. Well, number one, make sure that you are building that part. You don't have to, as a leader, I don't believe in just doing what you do well and forget everything else. I mean, if you're a marketer person, you got to be able to count. You got to be able to balance a checkbook. You got to be able to do a spreadsheet. If you're an accountant or a spreadsheet person, you got to be able to talk creatively as well. You just don't have that strength. But you've got to be aware and competent in everything at some level, where you're really, really superior in one or two. So if this is you and this is not you, you get to know it, you respect it, you learn how to follow through. But also just make sure that person is around. Make sure that person's around who loves that kind of stuff. And the definition of passion is something that you lose time for. They lose time when they go, this is a job well done. I got so excited when I see this. I had lunch with somebody yesterday who said, I get excited when things are done well and I feel real full inside. And I had lunch a week before with somebody that said, I just love it when there's a great vision. This person that's running this thing, your champion, they've got to just fall on fire when a plan works. All right? So that's how it works. It works with every organization, no matter what organization you end up with or work with as a client. And it makes all the difference. Okay, we have a great night tonight. I'll be doing the Q&A in a few minutes about this topic in particular. And we can veer off into other topics. I want to make sure, Scott and I talk about this a lot, about how we can best serve you guys. We have these two spaces of Q&A and their online virtual connection with each other. So you don't have to stick to just this topic. You can talk about anything you want to do. We really want to, wherever you feel like the needs are, the interests are, or the questions are, it's fine. So, but we'll have a space for that. And then we've got a great presentation by Mark Householder. If you're familiar with what used to be Campus Crusade for Christ, now called CUI, probably the largest Christian organization in the world in terms of employees, or one of them. They have several ministries like their campus ministry and others. One of their major ministries is called Athletes in Action, AIA. And they minister to pro athletes, college athletes, high school. Tremendous impact of the platform that sports has, because people on Sundays would rather go to see sports or on TV or live than go to church, right? So AIA decided, okay, they're not coming to church, so let's go to them. And so they went to the highways and byways and making a phenomenal impact. I speak with them a lot. And their CEO, long time friend, Mark Householder, is here to talk about execution. And it's going to be really a good fit with what we're doing, because he's going to go into examples and ways to understand his structure in his organization. But it's going to be really good for you. And then we'll have our usual, he'll ask him questions and have fun with that, because he's a very engaging, personal guy and knows a lot of stuff. And then we'll end up with just you guys and me and some more questions. So we want to get to you. We want to answer your questions. We want to make this program work for you. All right? So we'll see you in a few minutes.